What's up, guys? It's your boy Coder, and you'll notice that I have lost my voice, but we're still going to be doing this anyway because I have two very special guests here today that the Magic the Gathering enjoyers in the comment section told me that I gotta work with. So today, I am happy to introduce the guys from Play to Win, the YouTube channel, the podcast, both, I guess. We got Cam and we got Dylan. How y'all doing, boys?
Dude, doing great. Excited to be here.
Phenomenal over here on my end.
So what I told them very little about what we're doing today. I said, I'm going to ask you about Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules, and they need to figure out using their Magic the Gathering brain how it probably works. Now, the most important thing that I asked them is, what is your level of Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowledge and experience? And you guys said
Very little. For realistically, my only Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience is I play card games for a very long time, specifically Magic. So I have friends who have always played Yu-Gi-Oh! So I've been near it, but I don't really know the rules. I stopped playing sort of around the time for me, which middle school, which is when I realized that 4-star monsters were good. If you had a strong 4-star monster that didn't need to sacrifice a creature, that was powerful. And then after that, I stopped paying attention. So the game has obviously a lot different than what I know it as. But I roughly understand the idea of 8,000 life, and I know that it's a very fast format, and I get card games a little bit, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I thought it was 4,000 life, and Lajin, the Mystical Genie of the Lamp, was the best card in the game, so I think I'm a little bit behind.
You know what? No, I think this is perfect. I think it's going to be fantastic. So for today, I have 9 questions for you guys that we're going to be going through. I'll have you guys reading the cards, and you basically have to use your intuition. Assume that you're sitting down for your very first game of Yu-Gi-Oh! This happens. How would you assume that it would play out? Now, here you guys are working together, okay? It's not like a competition or nothing. You guys can communicate amongst each other and be like, how do you think this works? How do you think that works? But ultimately, the idea is to showcase just how different the rules are for Yu-Gi-Oh! And for Magic. So it's perfect that you guys know very little about Yu-Gi-Oh! Because then you can utilize your Magic the Gathering and overall general card game knowledge to try to figure this stuff out.
I'm ready.
So, right before we get into it, I do want to explain 2 very important things about Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules that are like the big differences between Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic. The biggest one is the difference between what we have called the chain, which is what you guys in Magic call the stack. So the stack is basically how you guys, stack multiple effects one after each other, whereas in Yu-Gi-Oh! That system, we call that the chain.
Okay.
But the big fundamental difference between the chain and the stack is that with the stack, when the stack is resolving, you're able to add more things to the stack in between resolving effects that are on the stack. Whereas in Yu-Gi-Oh!, the way a chain functions, let's say you use something as Chain Link 1, I use something as Chain Link 2, you then use something as Chain Link 3, and we agree, okay, we no longer have anything we want to add to the chain, we're going to let the chain resolve. At this point, no more effects can be added to the chain until the chain has fully resolved all the way down to Chain Link 1. So once a chain begins resolving, you're resolving the entire chain without adding anything new to it. That's the big
Dylan,
fundamental
that means
difference.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but Dylan, that
No,
means
you're
that
good.
every single stack has split second after the last spell gets put on the stack.
Yeah, honestly, that might solve
I
some
assume
problems
that's
in
what that means.
CDH.
I can't confirm it, and I don't know anything about Magic, but I mean, hey, I'm down.
That's wild. Okay, all right, I get it now.
That is kind of easy to understand, though. That kind
Awesome.
of makes sense, and I feel like that makes it easy to resolve, especially as like newer players, because in Magic, every time something happens, you can do something else. Anytime something finishes happening, everyone's allowed to do something else. So this kind of makes it a little bit easier, I think. That makes sense.
Yeah, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically go, here's all the shit that has to be done. Okay, we agree? Cool, do it all.
Yeah, okay.
That's just how that works. The other big fundamental difference between Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic is that you guys have failed to find rules. You're able to activate cards that would fundamentally do nothing. You're allowed to, let's say there's a card that says, destroy all your opponent's creatures. I assume you're allowed to activate that even if your opponent has no creatures.
Sure.
In Yu-Gi-Oh!, that's not a thing. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, in order to legally be allowed to activate a card, you must not only be able to do something with that card, you need to be able to do the entire effect. If in Yu-Gi-Oh! I have an effect that says, for example, destroy all monsters my opponent controls, then special summon a monster from my graveyard, if I don't have a monster in my graveyard, I can't even activate that effect, even if my opponent has a bunch of monsters on board. You need to be able to fully resolve the effect in order to activate it.
Can you
Yes, sir.
Can you activate the spell if your opponent has no creatures on board? If it says destroy all creatures, return a monster. If they have none, can you do it still or still no?
You also cannot do that.
You
Like
also can't do
Raigeki,
that.
for example, old school Yu-Gi-Oh card, you're not allowed to activate Raigeki at all if your opponent doesn't have any monsters on board.
Okay.
So they have to have at least one for you to legally be allowed to activate Raigeki. Otherwise, it is not a legal activation. Same thing with search effects or tutor effects. Like, I guess that's what you call them.
Yeah.
Let's say I have Reinforcement of the Army, which says add a warrior monster from deck to hand. If I don't have a warrior in my deck, I'm not legally allowed to activate that card.
Interesting. Okay.
So those are the two big fundamental differences.
I have one more question about Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think this is one of the only times that I'll ever get to ask this question. Is this true that in Yu-Gi-Oh you're not allowed to go infinite? Like, if you would be able to present a loop that could like infinitely do an action that could kill your opponent, are you not allowed to do that, or am I wrong?
So that is a fantastic question that I won't give you the answer to because I put an infinite loop question in this quiz. So you'll get your answer, but you'll get it later.
I'll figure it out today. All right, good. I'm glad we can segue that in.
You will get your answer later.
Okay.
So with that being said, with all the rules set out and all that stuff, it is time for us to get into the actual quiz. So, are you guys ready to go?
Ready.
Let's do this.
Question number 1, and I started you guys off a little bit easy with cards you'll probably recognize.
Oh, good. 4-star monsters with no effects. Okay.
So if I activate the spell card, Pot of Greed, and my opponent chains with the quick play spell card, Mystical Space Typhoon, targeting my Pot of Greed, what happens? So if you're not super familiar with how spell cards function, Pot of Greed is very popular, right? It's just activate it, draw 2 cards. Spell cards are cards you can just activate however, unless they have like a cost or whatever. If they don't have a cost written on the card, you can just activate it on your own turn. Mystical Space Typhoon has a little lightning bolt next to the spell card word, which means that it's a quick play. You can use it on either player's turn. So if I activate Pot of Greed to draw 2, and my opponent then uses their Mystical Space Typhoon in response to my Pot of Greed to destroy my Pot of Greed, what happens?
Ooh, I think I have an answer.
Go, Cam.
I'm gonna go.
Talk to me.
I'm gonna go based on my Magic logic. The one thing we didn't talk about the stack versus the chain is the stack operates on a first in, last out basis. So as spells get put on the stack, the first thing that's put on the stack is the last thing that's going to resolve. So in this case, if someone puts a draw 2 on the stack, we call them divination, and it's way worse than Pot of Greed. But if you go to divinate or Pot of Greed and someone tries to stop your Pot of Greed from going off, well, what happened is that would resolve first, and then your Pot of Greed would try to resolve, but it can't. It got stopped or countered. So I would think that Mystical Space Typhoon, even though Pot of Greed has been revealed and you want to do it, by the time it goes off in the chain, it's no longer there, and Mystical Space Typhoon is effectively a counterspell. That's what
I have a thought as well, and I think it's different than yours. I want to read it as if this was like Magic the Gathering stuff, because this is destroy target spell / trap on the field, whereas to me, Pot of Greed, in Magic, it would never be on the field. This looks like a spell to me, so it would go like in the chain, but I don't know if Yu-Gi-Oh! If that means like if every spell, I don't know if that means that it has to touch the field. So like in Magic, this wouldn't work, because if you're destroying something that's on the field, it reads to me like the Pot of Greed is already on the stack. So destroying it wouldn't do anything, but destroying could also...
Wait, so when you play a card, are you saying when you play a card, you don't play it on the field, you just play it into the ether?
No, yeah.
It goes into the stack first. It's like when you cast a fireball. Yeah, like there's a chance for someone to interact with the fireball, but instead of the fireball
that's
actually
insane.
going off, they just like...
Because what you're doing on Magic is you're putting it on the stack first, and then if the other player agrees that it resolves, then it goes into the battlefield. But like a spell would never touch the battlefield. The spell would just go from the stack right to the graveyard when it resolves. But your reaction is making me think that's not how it works. So I think Cameron's right.
Well, okay, so I can tell you right now that in Yu-Gi-Oh, when you play a card, like if I activate a spell card or I activate a trap card or whatever, I activate it to the field.
On the field.
And the effect activates and resolves on the field.
Okay.
A trap has to be on the field. The trap can't not
Trap's
be.
gotta be,
You
yeah.
can't fall into a trap that's not there. Like, could you
Well,
imagine?
you say that. There are cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That are trap cards that you can activate from your hand that we like to call hand traps. So
Of course.
that is a thing that exists more or less.
Yeah, I think
This quiz is gonna get way harder. Okay.
But yeah, I got to imagine, Mystical Space Typhoon would stop Pot of Greed from resolving, but in Magic, it kind of reads like maybe that shouldn't happen or something. I'm not sure.
Fair enough. So we're going to lock in Mystical Space Typhoon will stop the Pot of Greed, and I will not draw 2 cards.
I think that's what it does, yeah.
So the reason why I put this one in the quiz as the first question is because this is the typical way that you know whether or not someone is brand new to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or not. We have this meme called Mystical Space Typhoon Negates, MST Negates. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, effects are completely separate from the card that is activating the effect. So in this situation, Mystical Space Typhoon is destroying Pot of Greed, but the effect of Pot of Greed is already on the chain, and because Mystical Space Typhoon doesn't say that it negates it, it'll destroy the physical card. Your physical card, Pot of Greed, will go to the grave, but Pot of Greed's effect will still resolve, and you will still draw 2
Okay,
cards.
this kind of does make sense then for Magic then. So knowing that there is a difference between destroy and negate makes a lot of sense, because in Magic that is the same thing as well. Destroy and counter are, we say counter rather than negate, but they're different things. So knowing that they're different things, yes, okay, that makes sense. That the draw 2 is already on the stack. Okay.
Yeah. So the draw 2 effect is already on chain. Notoriously, a really funny thing, there's like some types of cards that need to still be on the field to resolve. So like, for example, if I have a field spell that would say draw 2, right? If they destroyed my field spell, the field spell wouldn't draw, because a field spell needs to still be on the field in order to resolve its effect, but normal spells do not have that rule. And so this is typically how we know someone's a beginner or whatever, is you'll go to locals and some guy will chain destroy your normal spell, and you're like, the effect still resolves, and they go, well, how? I destroyed it. There's no way. It's not there anymore. And you're like, MST doesn't negate, buddy. And that's just typical, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Meme. It's how you spot a beginner. So I decided to lay out this little trap for you guys. You flipped my trap card, but it was a Mystical Space Typhoon instead of a trap. But that's question number 1. Okay, I decided for this quiz that instead of going super technical, are we going to go with super, like, intricate rulings or anything like that? Or do I go for silly shit? And I felt like you two were the type to enjoy silly shit. So I decided, fuck it. Let's do some silly shit. So here for question number 2, I got the following cards. The trap card Relay Soul. And with the effect of Relay Soul, I have summoned the head of Exodia, the forbidden one, onto my field. And my opponent has a set trap card, Compulsory Evacuation Device. So basically, to lay out what the dual field looks like here, I control Exodia the Forbidden One that was summoned via the effect of Relay Soul, which says that I can summon a monster from hand, and while it's face up on the board, I effectively can't lose the game. But if the head of Exodia leaves my field, I lose. And then Compulsory Evacuation Device lets you target a monster on the field, return that target to the hand. However, the other 4 cards in my hand here are the 4 other limbs of Exodia. And the head of Exodia says that if I have the head of Exodia alongside the 4 limbs in my hand, I win the game. What happens?
So I think in Magic, I think this would be, it looks like 2 triggers going on the stack at the same time, and they're both your triggers, which means you get to order them how they resolve, I think, right? Cam, correct me if I'm wrong, but these look like these are 2, I guess no, because because I guess realistically, if the for Magic, if the Exodia is in hand, that means that oh shit, dude, I don't know.
So my question,
I think they go in the stack at the same time. You get to order them, I think.
My follow-up question is, if Exodia if you just reveal Exodia, is that a trigger or is that just a win? Because if that's just a win, then the trigger from the other trap card goes on the stack, and then that's a really good question. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, whenever a win condition or a lose condition has been met, it doesn't activate, it just applies. The interesting part about this question, the reason why it's so complicated, is because you're effectively simultaneously reaching the win condition of having Exodia with all 4 limbs in hand at the same time as reaching the lose condition of Relay Soul, your monster leaving the field. I see, because in Magic, the word when indicates that it's a triggered ability, which means it has to go on the stack and then it has to resolve. So that's why the when it leaves the battlefield comma is very clear Magic templating for it to be triggered. But if it happens at the same time, another thing with Magic is there's two things that come to my mind. Is number one is that usually can't overrides can. But I don't know that that applies because you can win the game or you can't win the game. I don't think that applies. But the other thing is that there is something else, though, in Magic called layers, which is something that every Magic player knows about but doesn't know what it is. And it's and it's basically the distribution of how on-board effects are applied and how they're looked at for the game state. So there's things that basically say, well, what if I say all lands are swamps, but I have another card that says all lands are mountains? How do I decide? Are they both? Are they one? Are they other? Like, how are they applied? And it's layers that determine. You have to look through the layers and how this goes. So maybe my thought, where I'm going with this, is that these two effects are applied at different layers, and that whichever one is layered above the other one is the one that will apply first. And I think that because it's Exodia, it will apply first, so you'll win the game instead of lose.
Also, Cameron, Exodia says if, whereas the other card says when, and in Magic, if means it's a replacement effect, and when means it's a trigger. So if it's a replacement effect, it doesn't actually go on the stack in the same way. I think I'm going to agree with Cam here for a similar reason. I think if Exodia is in your hand, you'll get to resolve that first and win the game.
The if and when are very clear for us here, but it's probably way wrong.
So what's really funny is that in Yu-Gi-Oh, if and when mean two wildly different things, and the word when is a word that Yu-Gi-Oh players hate to see on cards. I didn't actually put a question for this in the quiz, but fuck it, maybe I added, bro. That'd be really funny. But if and when in Yu-Gi-Oh, very divisive words. So for you guys, if and when means that an effect is either a trigger or a replacement. That's so
right. Yeah. So like
a
a trigger would like go on the stack, whereas like a replacement, it would like kind of like happen instead of what's happening, right? So like Cam, if something happened like this in Magic, if you had something that triggered said when it returns to your hand, there's a trigger that says you lose the game, but there was something else that had like a replacement effect that says when these 5 cards are in your hand, you win the game. In Magic, you would win the game, right, with the trigger still on the stack.
Yeah, there'd be like a state-based action that would occur that would like. I mean, it's weird because there's nothing in Magic that says reveal your hand and you can win the game. But it would be like a state-based action where it happens, the game would see it. The game
and
would
it just acknowledges,
you have those cards in your hand, and then
you wouldn't even reveal them. You would just say, "I win."
You would reveal them, but it would be like a replacement effect. It wouldn't make sense in Magic, but it would be like a replacement effect for having 5 cards in your hand. So it would just sort of happen, like, and your opponent really couldn't do anything about it.
You could do it on the online client very easily because a computer would recognize the 5 cards in your hand, see the trigger go on the stack, and go, "Nope, that trigger's not going to resolve. This player already has the win condition."
Right? Yeah.
Hand. But it's really it's weird in Magic paper when that happens, when you just go, "Oops, no," and I feel like I'm one of the rare
Sorry,
hunters.
but I win. Cry about it.
Yeah, I'm the rare hunter that battled Joey in season 2. Like, I literally feel like that guy.
Okay, so you're saying that Exodia would win the game here before Relay Soul says that
I think we're gonna, yeah.
Or 100% of the time, and I would put money on it, yeah.
I think what's really funny is that you guys were debating option A, Exodia wins, option B, Relay Soul makes you lose. The correct answer is actually secret option C.
Oh, no.
A win condition and a lose condition have been met at the same time. Therefore, the game results in a draw.
That's devastating.
It is not a win nor a loss. It is a draw. Now, does this ever happen? Fuck no. Absolutely not. This has probably never happened unless you were specifically trying to get this to happen. However, really funny that it results in a draw. And honestly, this one's a little bit like of a silly question. Most Yu-Gi-Oh players probably wouldn't even know the answer to this one. I'm gonna be so real with you.
That's so funny that it just negates itself. I guess that kind of makes sense, but I don't know why that's like an unsatisfactory answer.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be one or the other.
It is super unsatisfactory, but yeah, that's That is just how that works.
So would the game just continue while you have all 5 pieces of Exodia in your hand and you keep playing the game?
No, so the game can't continue while you have all 5 pieces of Exodia.
The game just ends, is it?
Yeah, it would just be a draw. Like, you're like, okay, the game, I have lost and won simultaneously, therefore the game is a draw. Pick up all the cards and proceed to, I guess, game 1, number 2, you know?
Yeah, it'd be like having an effect in play continuously that says you win the game, like on a creature, on a magic card. And like if you Dress Down did, which is a card that says all creatures lose all abilities. It like enters, has no abilities, but then Dress Down leaves the battlefield. It's still going to say you win the game on it by the time it's there. So like you can't really pass with something that says you win the game.
So interesting.
Outright. Otherwise, like the game is just always over and you winning then. So
I actually think it's so interesting because, like, so are there cards in Magic that just like have an alternate win condition that just say if you meet this condition, you win the game?
I'm glad you asked. The card that people love and hate the most in the format we play the most, CEDH, is an alternate win condition called Thassa's Oracle, where if you have no cards in your library, or basically if you have little to no cards in your library, you win the game.
Okay, so the effect of that to win the game, does that go on the stack, or is it just, I have met my win condition, therefore I win?
Normally it's a trigger.
It's a trigger that will go on the stack.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, in Yu-Gi-Oh, we basically don't have any... Like, anytime a win condition is met, it doesn't go on the chain for the most part. Like, anytime you meet a win condition, like Exodia, it doesn't go on chain. Even if, like, let's say I have, like, Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2, Chain Link 3, Chain Link 4, a bunch of shit. Chain Link 19, an effect that draws my whole deck. I'll draw my whole deck. At that point, because I have Exodia, I win the game. You don't even resolve the rest of the chain.
I got it. Okay, so wait, so your chains, this is also important. Your chains resolve last in, last out?
So no, chains resolve exactly like your stack. So basically, Chain Link, like, so if I go Chain Link 1, my thing, you go Chain Link 2, your thing, your thing resolves.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Understood.
So that is question number 2. God fucking yeah, bro. All right, off to a fantastic start. I mean, I'm learning so much about Magic, which is not what I expected I would be doing today. But honestly, I guess I don't know what I expected. Let's move on to question number 3. So a big thing that I do, I've done a lot of like ruling based like quizzes and stuff like that on my channel. Typically, whenever I do ruling based quizzes, I put a lot of normal monsters. So we call them vanillas. I don't know if you guys call guys with no effects vanillas. You do?
Thing.
Awesome. Anytime you see a vanilla in my quiz, it's just a placeholder guy. It could be literally fucking any dude. I control Bean Soldier, the GOAT, and my opponent controls a continuous trap card called Gozen Match, which is what we like to call a floodgate. Gozen Match says that each player can only control one attribute of monster. The attribute is Earth, Fire, Dark, so you'll notice Bean Soldier, an Earth monster. In this situation, and you mentioned sacrifices before, so you know how tributing works to tribute summon a monster. My question here, if I have my Bean Soldier on my board and my opponent controls Gozen Match, can I legally tribute my Bean Soldier in order to tribute summon my dark attribute summoned skull?
Oh, okay. I have a thought. In Magic, I think this would be, yes, you would be allowed to do this. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, I think the answer is no, because you, I think, said earlier that there's no area before the battlefield. If you want to play something, it goes onto the battlefield, and you're not allowed to do it if you can't do it. Which means, is there a moment that Summon Skull and Bean Soldier would technically be on the battlefield at the same time? Because in order to play the Summon Skull, you put it onto the battlefield, and then you have to sacrifice a creature. Does that make sense? I'm gonna say that you're not, but that sounds really good though, that you're not allowed to sacrifice. But I guess I don't really know.
So the order in which you perform a tribute summon goes as follows: you select the card that you want to tribute summon. So in this case, the Summon Skull. You then send the tributes for it. So here you would send the Bean Soldier to your graveyard. Then you tribute summon the Summon Skull you put on the board. So no, they're never on the board at the same time, but you do have to select your Summon Skull as the guy you want to tribute summon before you send off the Bean Soldier.
Okay, so knowing that, then I would say yes, you would be allowed to do this. I think I'm changing my answer, unless I've just been tricked, but I'm going to change my answer now that you said that I think, yes, you are allowed to do this.
Cam, do you agree with that? Do you feel differently about it?
No, I think I have to agree with that. I think there might be something about I think I'm focusing a little bit too much around the fact that you said that goes and match is a floodgate. And I'm thinking that words mean things, and that floodgate might mean that it allows you to open up the opportunity to do something.
Wait, is floodgate not a term that you guys use?
I have no idea what that means.
No, we don't use floodgate.
Okay,
No, I
so
have no
in Yu-Gi-Oh,
idea.
the term floodgate, obviously not a real game term, but floodgate is a word that we Yu-Gi-Oh players use to describe cards that say you can't do something. So like a card like Skill Drain that negates the effects of all your opponent's guys, that shit's a floodgate. Goes a match says you can only control one attribute, that shit's a floodgate. That's what we like to call floodgates.
I see. They're stacks pieces, we call them.
Okay, interesting.
Stacks,
Interesting.
yeah. So I would say that this stacks piece here does not prevent us from tribute summoning Summon Skull in this case. That's what I would say.
So this is a two-part question. I'm going to give you one other little piece to this one before I give you the answer. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, we also have this thing that it defines the game that we call the extra deck. You guys are probably more familiar with the fusion deck, that deck on the side where you have your fusion monsters. In Yu-Gi-Oh, they've expanded and added a lot of different types of extra deck monsters, so it's no longer only fusions. There's synchros and XCs and link monsters in there and all that shit now. I'm going to show you a link monster. You do not need to read the effect, okay? Because I don't want to overcomplicate this for you guys. This is Link Spider, a link monster. And the way that you perform a link summon is very similar to how you perform a tribute summon. You basically look at the materials, which here it says one normal monster, which the Bean Soldier is. And the way you perform a link summon is you would just send the materials that are listed on the link monster from your field to your grave to then summon this out from your extra deck. So it's not a card you have to draw into, it's a card you just have access to and can effectively just cheat out provided you have the right materials.
That sounds so good.
It's really good. So most decks in Yu-Gi-Oh are built around the idea of these 15 cards in my extra deck are the best cards in my deck, and my deck is built around being able to put the materials to cheat out these cards from my extra deck. That's usually the gameplay loop of Yu-Gi-Oh! So in this same situation, opponent controls goes in match, and I have, we're going to say, a monster other than Bean Soldier, because Bean Soldier's an earth, and so is Link Spider. So let's assume in this case, Bean Soldier's a fire, right? Would I be allowed to link off my Bean Soldier that's now a fire for some reason in order to summon my Link Spider? And the order of doing this is similar to a tribute summon. You select what you want to link summon, send the materials, and then slap your link summon onto the board.
Well, now I'm thinking the answer is no, because I didn't really understand that them having different types meant anything, because since to me it was either one at a time or two at a time. But so if there being different types matters, then I would say no, that you probably can't do that then, right? Because if the type
the whole idea is that they have different attributes, and goes and match only allows you to have one attribute on them.
So that that does make no sense to me, because what you're saying to me is in order to tribute some of the thing, you have to get rid of the one and then you put it. So to me, there's never a moment that they're on at the same time. But now I'm thinking that maybe this still doesn't care because of some sort of timing thing of Yu-Gi-Oh that I don't understand, that even though it's one after the other, they're still, I don't know, not allowed. I don't know. Cam, what do you think?
I'm now realizing that I don't understand how Goes in Match decides which attribute you want it to be. Like, can I play another fire monster when I have Bean Soldier in play, and then I get to choose, no, I want fire now, and I get to dump Bean Soldier?
I can give you the answer to that one. That's a really good question. So Goes in Match prevents you entirely from summoning a monster with a different attribute than the attributes that you control.
Oh,
so
this
if I have a
changes
dark,
everything.
if I have a dark, I cannot legally summon a fire attribute monster.
Okay.
With
then
Goes in
I
Match on the
think-
board.
Then I have to change everything then. Then my answer is you cannot Bean Soldier into Summon Skull with the Goes in Match in play, but you can sure as shit Link Spider away you know what? No, you said it was a fire monster.
Assuming the Bean Soldier's a fire. I should have used a different vanilla for this.
No, I get you.
I can
I
pick a
get
different
you.
one, but I blanked on Link Spider and Bean Soldier the same attributes. This is a stupid question.
I'm gonna say no to both. Now knowing the way that Goes in Match officially goes, I think it's gonna be no to both, but I think there's gonna be something about Link summoning that's gonna prove me wrong. That's gonna be
Yeah,
what
I think
bet.
Cam's right. Something about link summoning is going to make it not the way that it seems that. But I agree with what Cam said, that you're not allowed to do it.
Fair. Well, for the first time in this quiz, you guys are both correct. You are not allowed to attempt the summon of the Summon Skull, nor are you allowed to attempt the summon of the Link Spider, because in Yu-Gi-Oh, these cards, Goes and Match, there's another card called Rivalry of Warlords that does the same thing for types instead of attributes. And there's also this other card that's called There Can Be Only One that says you can't control more than one monster of any given type. Like you can't control 2 fiends or whatever. And these cards, they also trick beginners a lot of the time because they're like, well, they're never on the board at the same time. Why can't I do this? That doesn't make any sense. I agree that it doesn't make any sense. But these cards, we like to say they can look into the future. They can see the thing that you're attempting to summon. The real explanation for the rule is that I gave you the order of how you perform like a tribute summon or a link summon. You select the thing that you want to summon before sending away the materials. But because you have Goes and Match on the board, the game recognizes that the thing you are choosing to attempt to summon isn't a thing you can legally summon in this moment. So it doesn't look ahead to the fact that, oh, well, they'll never be on the board at the same time. It'll just look to the fact that, well, right now, summoning Summon Skull is not legal. No matter what the fuck you're going to do, it doesn't care. It just goes, this is not a legal summon you're attempting, so you can't even attempt to do it.
Okay, that does kind of make sense. So there is kind of like a stack. That does make a little bit of sense. I think Magic would work in a similar way.
Sort of. It prevents you from even attempting the action. You can't even like activate an effect that would summon like a monster of a different type or something like that. That's not something you would legally be allowed to activate because you're locked in on this attribute of Earth because you control the.
That's kind of how Magic works, I think. There's like a whole bunch of steps in like how to cast a spell, and the first one is like announcing that you're casting this spell, but I think there's also like a mini fake one before that checks to see if you have the ability to do it, and then if you don't have the ability to do it, you like back up because you are not allowed to cast it because you can't cast it. I don't know. Magic is kind of weird.
That's like only if you did cast it and you realize in play that you can't actually do what you just did and you have to back up. But like,
so I have a question about Magic. Okay, in Magic, do players like also not know the intricacies of the rules really well? Because in Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like a very notorious thing. There's a bunch of rules in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I'm a huge nerd and know all of them because I gave a fuck to learn it. But like I could ask top level players questions about how damage works or battle works at Yu-Gi-Oh, and most of them wouldn't even know all the answers.
Yeah, I would say it's similar for most Magic players. Obviously, the very competitive ones know how most of the rules work, but realistically, even still, most of the Magic players, they know how their deck works and they know how it works with the metagame around it, but they probably couldn't tell you all of the rules of the weird fringe decks that are going to pop up or how every single part of the rules works. They just like know how their cards work because they know what happens. But right, Cam, I feel like a lot of time, no one knows all of the rules. There's so many rules of Magic that I could not tell you, but I roughly know how the cards that I use frequently work.
Yeah, I think what Dylan described is perfect for like the established metagames of like the competitive formats, but the more popularized casual formats, I think people have their phones out constantly because they have no idea what, and even like what an ability does because they stop putting reminder text on things and it just says Encore. What the fuck does Encore mean? Like, I have to remember what Encore does as just a flavor word. That doesn't help me at all.
Well, okay, well you guys are on the board. You guys got one right. Congratulations.
Kind of, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Doing better than I thought that I would. All right.
We're gonna go on to question number 4, and I thought I would throw you guys a bone. Instead of asking you about a Yu-Gi-Oh rule, I'm going to give you a card, and the entire question I'm asking you is, how the hell does this card work? Nice. I present to you a card that broke the brains of Yu-Gi-Oh players when it was first announced, Small World.
I gotta read this one out loud. This is so many words. All right.
Electronic.
Reveal one monster in your hand. Choose one, comma. How important is grammar and punctuation on Yu-Gi-Oh rules? Is it very?
So in Yu-Gi-Oh, the things that are important are colons and semicolons. They tell you basically what is an activation requirement, what is a cost, and then what is an effect.
Magic is the same way.
This card doesn't have activation requirement or cost. All of this is effect. The only thing that isn't technically effect is the last sentence in this card is just, it says you can only activate one of this per turn, so it's just a restriction.
Let me read this one more time. Okay, so reveal one monster from your hand, comma, choose one monster from your deck that has exactly one of the same type. attribute, level, attack, or defense, and banish the revealed monster from your hand face down. Then you don't even have to show your opponent. Is that what that means?
You do have to show your opponent,
and then you
yes.
put
You
it
do
face
have to
down. Okay. Then add
Yeah.
from in Magic when something's face down, your opponent doesn't get to see it. That's what that means. Then add from your deck to your hand one monster that has exactly one of the same type, attribute, the same thing that we just said before, as the monster chosen from your deck, and banish that card. Wait, what? Then add from the deck to your hand one monster that has exactly one of the same attribute as the monster chosen from your deck, and banish the card chosen from the deck face down. You can only activate once per turn. What does this just...
So one thing that I will clarify, just to make it easier for your own comprehension, in Yu-Gi-Oh, the concept of banishing face down, banishing for us is exiling for you guys. However, in Yu-Gi-Oh, cards that are banished are very easy to interact with. Whereas, to my understanding, when you exile a card in Magic, there are like so few cards that can interact with those cards, they're effectively
Yeah,
gone.
they're normally gone for good.
In Yu-Gi-Oh, if you banish a card, a lot of people like to refer to the banish as a second graveyard in Yu-Gi-Oh. It's very, very strange. So the way that Konami have designed cards to basically say these cards are gone effectively for good is to banish them face down, because very few cards interact with face down banished cards. So basically when you see banish face down or whatever, you can just assume it's just exile. Just get rid
Forever.
of that shit.
So does this card allow you to exile a card from your hand and a card from your deck of the same type, and then they're both just gone? Is that all it does? Did I read that correct? Or
I think the card in your hand stays,
does
right?
it say?
You are going through the steps that the Yu-Gi-Oh community went. I'm sorry, what the fuck
Am I
reading?
like two of the
All right,
cards
so
from
you
my library?
reveal one monster from your hand. You reveal one monster, and then you get to choose one monster from your deck that has exactly one of the same type, attribute, level, attack, or defense. So if it's a fire monster that I reveal, I can reveal a fire monster, but it cannot have the same type, level, attack, or defense as the card that
exactly
I revealed.
what
So only
Correct.
one
That's
of
correct. That is
only
correct.
one of the things that was revealed can match the same thing. And then I banish that card face down. And then I do the same thing again, except instead of the revealed card from my hand, I'm using the stats of the first banished monster, and now I can go off of attack. So now I can have one that's the same attack, and then but the defense has to be different, the attribute has to be different, the type has to be different, and then you do it a third time, but you're again basing it off of the second one. So it's this crazy 3-card tutor that puts 3 things from your deck into banishment that probably combos with a bunch of other stuff, and all you did was reveal the card, and I don't see anything that says put the revealed card from your hand, the revealed monster from your hand, into banishment. So that's what I think it does. That's
My
what I'm
mind
gonna
is
say it
blown.
does.
I'm only seeing it telling that you're allowed to do that twice though. How are you seeing the third time? I think it only mentions it twice.
Maybe it is just twice. I was
To
looking.
me, it looks, but I'm also realizing that this card, I think it stays in play. It says you activate it once per turn. So I think that this spell does not go to a graveyard after you finish doing its thing. I think maybe it is allowed to remain on the field each turn. So does that mean that you just get to exile 2 cards from your library every turn? Does that are you?
No. So one thing I'll clarify. So this is a normal spell, like Pot of Greed.
This is a one effect.
Normal spells, when they resolve, they just go to grave. They're like a one.
Then the once per turn at the bottom.
You just can't flip another one over, though.
Yeah, the
because
once
you
per
can have
turn just
3
says if you have
copies
2
Small
copies of
World.
Small World, you can't play both in the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Yu-Gi-Oh
Yeah.
does that a lot because every card in our game is broken. So in order for you to not be able to just infinitely do shit, basically every card has once per turn text on it. However, anytime a card doesn't have that, it's instantly broken. Like
Yeah, that makes sense because there's no mana system in Yu-Gi-Oh. That's why you guys have everything is
Correct.
for free.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think this.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you could multiple Small World, that's like a 6 tutor if you do 3 of them or something. Yeah, maybe I counted wrong, but that's what I think. I think this is a cracked tutor that certain decks that need to find 2 specific monsters can find them just because one of their stats happens to match up with the right thing.
You said there's
That's what
not
I
many
think it's
effects that look for banished face down cards, but there's got to be one. There's got to be one card that.
So I'll tell you right now, there are no good effects that interact with face down banished cards. Like the extent that you'll be able to do is There's some cards that can return face down banished cards back into your deck or whatever. Face down banished in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is effectively the card is not usable.
Then all this does was thin your deck and just like exile 2 cards from your deck. To me, that seems bad, but maybe I don't understand. I'm gonna say that's what this does, and I'm gonna say that it's bad.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Always throws a curveball at you.
There's a
where,
trick.
Like, you read a card, you go, this card looks like it sucks, and it goes, actually, it's part of the most broken deck that's in existence. You're
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Does do that a lot. You'll read a card and go, this is ass, and then it's insane. So honestly, I'm going to give you guys the point for this one because you were so much closer to understanding how this card works than I would have ever expected you to be. So I'm just going to give it to you. Basically, what Small World does, you said it's a cracked tutor that can search anything provided that they randomly have a thing in common, which is exactly what it is. What it does is it reveals a monster in your hand, and then you get to banish from your deck something that has the same, like, one thing in common with the thing in your hand. You banish that thing from deck and this thing from your hand to then take a third card that has one thing in common with that one you banished from deck and just add it to hand. So basically it says you take this card, take one thing in common with this and one thing in your deck, banish this, then take a second card from deck that has a thing in common with this one, banish this one, and add that third one. So that's what it does.
This card's
Wait, so you
broken
banish
wide
the
open.
first...
So technically, it's a -1 in card economy. You lose one card because you play Small World and you lose a card from hand. So you go -1, but a bunch of random like combinations of cards in the game just let you tutor effectively anything out of your deck.
Wait, so you banish you're
Yeah,
banishing
this seems
one of the cards that you search from your library and the original card that you reveal to find a third card and put into your hand, and you get to keep that card.
Yes.
That effect's gotta
Yes.
be broken. That's gotta be so good.
Well, so the thing that's really funny, actually, so I know this is not one of those videos of like, is this card broken or whatever. This card has seen very fringe competitive play, rarely. Very rarely. But that's because most decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are so consistent. They don't need
a
this.
tutor. Okay.
So you'll play this in like decks that are less consistent. The one thing that I find really cool about this card, it's called Small World because the whole idea of the flavor of the card is that it's a friend of a friend. Like you and this one person know each other from one thing in common. And then this person, the other person know each other from one thing in common. So that's the bridge between it. It's really funny. It's really silly.
Oh, I get that. That's funny. Okay, I like that.
Well, a thing that's really funny about this card specifically, right, is that resolving it tends to be a nightmare if your opponent, like, because the thing is, Small World can effectively tutor anything, but typically when people put this in their deck, they, like, predetermine, like, okay, so with this card, I can bridge through this one to this other card. And they'll know, like, 4 or 5 Small World bridges. But then sometimes they'll get into a game state where they're like, I need this other card. I had not planned to search with this card at all. And then you're like doing calculations and you're like, does this have the same attack as that? Does this have the same attribute? And then you're sitting there resolving the card for a minute and a half, trying to find a bridge to search the thing you want. Nightmare. Absolute nightmare.
Honestly, that kind of sounds familiar. There's an iconic card in Magic called Doomsday that just says you basically get to look through your library, you choose 5 cards, and you exile the rest of them. And then your library is just those only 5 cards left. And it can be a very powerful card because it effectively just like... It gives you only the 5 cards that you need, but like it's a notoriously very difficult spell to resolve because although theoretically there's an easy line that wins you the game.
5 turns ahead.
Yeah,
and shit,
once anything changes, all of a sudden all the math is different. What you have to do is different to get access to the 5 cards or whatever. So it kind of sounds similar.
Insane.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, you guys are 50-50 right now. 2 for 4. Not bad at all.
Nice.
All right, so now this next question, I'm going to show you guys a card that I'm gonna need to explain to you how they function, but this is Imperial Princess Quinkery, which is an XYZ monster. So XYZ monsters are like links, like fusions. They live in your extra deck, and they're a card that you can just cheat out onto the board under certain conditions. So the conditions for Imperial Princess Quinkery, in order to cheat her out onto the board, is you have to have 2 level 5 monsters on the field. And the way that XYZ monsters function is you take those 2 level 5 monsters, put them one on top of the other, and then you put the Quinkery on top of that. So the 2 level 5 monsters are under your Quinkery, and the way you got to look at this is Quinkery is a gun, the cards underneath it are the ammunition. You will detach one in order to activate the effect, so it has a limited number of uses in order to activate her effect. So here you control a Princess Quinkery that has 2 level 5 monsters underneath it. The level 5 monsters underneath it don't matter. And then in your graveyard, you have this card called Artifact Mjolnir. this card here, which is a level 5 monster. I'm going to read you the relevant part of Quinkuri's text, which says you can detach a material from this card, so remove one of the ammunition, target a level 5 monster in either grave, special summon it to either field. That's all it's doing. So in this situation, the Quinkuri is going to target the artifact Mjolnir in your grave and is going to summon it to your opponent's side of the field during your turn. What happens? And I'll read you the relevant part of Mjolnir here as well. It says, if this card is special summoned during your opponent's turn, which is activation requirement, target one artifact monster in your graveyard, which is also activation requirement, special summon it in defense position. Also, you cannot special summon monsters until the end of the next turn, except artifact monsters.
For something to be an artifact monster, it just has to have the word artifact in its name, right?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Cam, do you want to take this one? Because I'm already confused. I have no clue.
I'm a little confused. What I'm going to say is what this breaks down to is that you're giving your opponent a stacks piece, or a floodgate, as we call it in this game, that says that they can't play their spells. They can't cast their monsters.
They can't play any guys. No guys.
Because they're probably not the artifact deck.
The artifact deck is dog shit. Unplayable. No one plays artifact cards.
Which is why, because I have the artifact Mjolnir, if I give it to you and it says that you can't play things that aren't artifact monsters, that means that your deck is good because it's full of non-artifact
that sounds like that makes
so as long as you're playing a
yeah,
good
that
deck,
makes
you can't
I agree with
win.
Cam. This makes a lot of sense. I think that's what it does.
Fair. So I thought I was tossing you guys a curveball because at the start of this video, I told you in order to activate an effect, you need to be able to resolve it. You need to be able to use it. And the Mjolnir says that you have to special summon an artifact monster from your graveyard. But Yu-Gi-Oh! That rule that I told you doesn't apply when an effect is mandatory. So this play that I'm explaining to you guys here, the Quinkuri and the Mjolnir, this play was like meta. Some decks were doing this to straight floodgate or stacks piece, like you like to say, their opponent out of playing their entire turn by just going, I summon Quinkuri, here's a Mjolnir, you're locked into artifacts until the end of your own turn. And the only reason why that works is because Mjolnir is a mandatory effect. If Mjolnir said, if this card is summoned, you can special summon a guy from grave, this would not be a legal effect to activate, and it would not floodgate your opponent at all. But the only reason why it does floodgate them is specifically because it is a mandatory effect, so it has to activate. Mandatory.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of weird. Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules can almost like the rules can override themselves.
I love how
almost.
your face is, bro. Cam is just like in awe, and Dylan's just like, "What the fuck am I listening?"
Because it sounds like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules can like override themselves almost, which is kind of interesting.
Well, that's what they did in the anime too. So
Yeah, pretty much.
I know. I have overheard from Yu-Gi-Oh players that this type of thing, the floodgating thing, is like a common way to like perform a combo. Because from what we talked about earlier, is I think that you're not allowed to perform infinite loops. So rather than like creating an infinite loop, you just like permanently lock your opponent out from playing the game, and then they just concede.
That is a thing that happens a lot. This artifact Mjolnir card, because of this exact play, is banned.
Banned. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool.
really.
Yeah, they banned this
Is
Mjolnir
that why
card.
the artifact deck is bad now?
No. So the artifact, the thing with the artifact deck is that they play on this like really weird mechanic where you're allowed to set your artifact monsters as trap cards in your back row. And then like if your opponent destroys them, then they say, ha, you destroyed my artifact. I'm going to summon myself and do a thing. This wasn't even ever what Mjolnir was intended to do. It was supposed to be good for your artifact deck, because you get to revive artifacts and have more guys.
Okay.
But then people are just using this to basically say, fuck you, you're locked.
In Magic, there's effects called like harmless offerings, I think is what it's called, where you like give your opponents a permanent that you could effectively do something like this, but there's no like, there's realistically never a good enough payoff to do anything like that. Like it has never really.
Well, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically, it's a thing specifically because the game ends in 3 turns anyway. So if you tell your opponent you can't do anything for a turn, you've won the game. GG's.
There was a standard deck for a little bit that there was Harmless Offering and then Demonic Pact, which was a card that said at the beginning of each upkeep, you have to choose one effect, and there were 4 effects. You couldn't repeat your choice, And the last one that you chose was always you lose the game. So you had to try to win the game before that went off.
But the other 3 effects are good effects.
Before that effect would go off, you would just harmless offering it to your opponent, and then that's how you would win.
Oh, ew. No, that's disgusting. I hate that. What the fuck? Okay. Well, hey, you guys have gotten 3 out of 5 so far. I'm impressed.
Me too. Holy cow.
So these are only going to get harder as we go. I'm letting you know this right now, which is insane because you guys got the first 2 wrong and the next 3 correct. This next one was one that was suggested to me by a Magic the Gathering viewer of mine that said they will find this interesting. I control Armored Bee, and my opponent controls Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. Big ass motherfucker. And then I have a face down card called Book of Moon, which is an older one. You've probably seen this one before. I control a face down Book of Moon, which is a quick play spell, meaning I can activate it at, I guess you guys call it instant speed. I can activate it like it's a trap card. In this situation, I use my Armored Bee effect, Chainlink 1, target my opponent's Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss in order to swap its stats. Chainlink 2, my opponent uses the first effect of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, which says you can target a face-up card your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn. So he's targeting my Armored Bee to negate my Armored Bee's effect. As Chainlink 3, I activate Book of Moon on my Armored Bee to flip my Armored Bee from face-up to face-down defense mode. What happens?
Oh, I have no idea what happens when you flip something face down. So the Hot Red Dragon, I imagine, would counter it says it's supposed to counter the effect, and then the Book of Moon would turn it the bee face down, but that wouldn't do anything because the effect has already been countered?
So the Book of Moon will turn the bee face down first, because remember, chains resolve backwards. So it's Chainlink 1 bee to swap the stats of Hot Red, Chain 2 Hot Red, targeting the Armored Bee to negate the effects of Armored Bee, Chainlink 3 Book of Moon on the Armored Bee to flip the Armored Bee face down.
I think I got it because the monster says face up creature, so it turns a face up thing. So Book of Moon will turn it face down, and then the dragon will go to try to negate the effect, except that by the time that it's trying to resolve, the Armored Bee is face down, so it can't counter a face down effect, but the Armored Bee's effect is still in the stack, even though it's face down, and then the final thing that will resolved will be the bee will swap the power and toughness, or do whatever the bee is supposed to do.
The power and toughness. I love these words, man.
Attack and defense power.
It's really funny because a lot of times when you play like a TCG, you can tell what someone's main game is by how they use like certain words. Like sometimes I'll be playing Yu-Gi-Oh at locals against someone and I'll add a guy and they'll go, "Can I read the creature you just added?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're a Magic player, aren't you?" You know? Or my friend
Yeah.
Gage, a lot of time he'll be playing and he'll say like, "Oh, he popped my minion," and I'm like, "Bro, you're talking Hearthstone. Like, what are you doing?"
But yeah, I'm gonna lock. Yeah, what does Camp think?
I'm going to agree with Dylan because I can't figure out red. I'm just looking at red hot and my eyes are getting red hot because there's too many words and I'm getting lost in the sauce here. So I think
very
I'm
good
gonna
card,
agree
very
with
good
Dylan.
card, Hot Red. But the big thing, right? I know it's intimidating, the fucking like wall of text. The only effect that matters is that first line, quick effect. Target a face-up card your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn. That's the only part of Hot Red that's important.
Okay. I'm standing by that. I think that the end result of this is that the bee's effect would happen, and that the dragon. I don't know, what does that do though. What does that do that the dragon has 25 attack and 32 defense? I guess that like changes your blocking math, so you could like more easily kill it or something.
Well, so in Yu-Gi-Oh, you don't block. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you compare stats based on battle position. So, like, let's say you have a guy in attack mode and I have a guy in attack mode and they battle. Whichever one has the highest attack stat kills the other.
Right. Yeah. So technically, if you had something that has, but it's only its highest attack stat. It doesn't. Where does the defense come up? Only if they're in...
The defense only comes in if the monsters are in defense mode. Then you check their defense stat rather than their
so
attack stat.
if you have a creature that has 2,600 attack, and then you swap the power and toughness of this one to 2,500 attack, then when you attack it, you will kill it, and then it'll die.
That is how that would work. So that would be the appeal of the Armored Bee. Armored Bee, card that has never seen any competitive play.
I was gonna
ever.
say
It just happened to work perfectly fine for this.
I was gonna say this
Dog
effect
shit
seems
card.
bad. This card seems bad, but
Okay, so are we locking in that the Armored Bee will change the stats of the
I
Hot
think
Red?
so. I'm locking in Magic. That's how it would work. I'm pretty sure. So I'm gonna lock that in.
Do you agree with that, Cam?
I fully agree. Fully support Dylan.
Well, dude, I am very happy to say that you are once again correct. That is absolutely insane. And specifically, the reason why is not even that the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss states that it has to target a face-up card. The reason why is because you simply cannot negate the effects of a card that's face down because a face down card does not have effects. It's a face down card. I mean, bro, you guys are fucking cooking, bro. You guys are in the money right now. Holy moly. So this next one exists to fuck with your brain. Okay, I'm about to show you like 7 different cards. Keep in mind, you only need to read 2 of them. I have previously activated and resolved Marine Cess Coral Anemone. So all you need to know about Coral Anemone is that it says you can target a water monster with 1500 or less attack in your grave, special summon it to your zone this card points to. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except water monsters. So all you need to know, I am locked into only summoning water monsters for the remainder of this turn. So I now control a monster called World Sea Dragon Zelantis. And World Sea Dragon Zelantis says, during your main phase, you can banish or exile all monsters on the field, then special summon as many monsters as possible that were banished by this effect to their owner's fields in face-up attack or face-down defense position. So what this does is it basically blinks all the monsters away and brings them all right back.
Does that redo their that reinstates their triggers if they have triggers when they enter, or is it
if their triggers are what we call soft once per turn? Then yes. And what we call soft once per turn is like cards that say once per turn you can do this thing, but it's once per turn per copy of the card. If they're banished and come back, they're treated as a different copy so they can use their effects.
Magic is similar.
That's the primary utility of this card. So this card basically blinks everything away and then brings it all back. So I'm currently locked into I can only summon water monsters, and now Zelantis is blinking away all the monsters on both players' fields and bringing them back to both players' fields to their owners' boards. So on the field, alongside the Zelantis, I control Penguin Soldier. You don't have to read the effect. Celtic Guardian. I control the Blue Eyes White Dragon, classic monster. And then my opponent controls Dark Magician, classic Dark Magician. They control a Cyber Dragon. You don't need to read the effect. And they control a Legendary Fisherman. You also don't need to read their effects. So my opponent has these last 3 monsters. I control Zelantis, Penguin Soldier, Celtic Guardian, and Blue Eyes White Dragon. If I use the effect of Zelantis, which monsters are special summoned back to the field via the effect of Zelantis?
I got this.
All right, Cam, you go.
I think it's Penguin Soldier and the Legendary Fisherman, only because of their water attribute. That's the only reason why I thought, because isn't my Coral Anemone says that I can only special summons water monsters.
You can only special summon water monsters. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Legendary Fisherman and Cyber Dragon and Dark Magician are your opponent's monsters.
They're on his side of the field, yes.
So they all come back, but only your Penguin Soldier.
Interesting. And we're to assume that like your Celtic Guardian and your Blue Eyes White Dragon, they entered the field on your side of the field before you played Marnius Coral Enemies, right? Like they were on play 4.
Yeah. So you just control Blue Eyes, Celtic Guardian, Penguin Soldier, and Zelantis. All of that was legal. We are only at the point where you can only summon water monsters and you use your Zelantis. You're banishing everything from both players' sides of the field,
including the Marcy.
And then you're attempting to bring them
You're banishing everything, including the thing that says you're only allowed to play water spells. You're banishing that too.
So you no longer, in this situation, you don't control Anemone anymore. All you control is Zelantis, Penguin Soldier, Celtic Guardian, Blue Eyes. Anemone's effect is lingering. It applies for the remainder of the turn, even if it's no longer there.
Oh,
yeah. So the restriction for waters just applies for the whole fucking turn.
It applies for the whole. Why does it do that? What makes her effect apply for the whole turn, even if she's not there? What do you mean? That's just what the
Coral Anemone specifically says to do a thing. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except water monsters. That's what we in Yu-Gi-Oh like to call a lingering effect.
Rest of this turn.
So it's once that is applied, it applies to the remainder of the turn, regardless what happens to this.
So, but
we have a name for that in Magic, but I don't know what it is. But I'm thinking of the new Gwenum, Remorseless Spider-Man card.
I love Spider-Man.
Right, well, as long as Gwenum has attacked, you can cast cards from the top of your library, but, like, if she's left play, her effect is still ongoing for that turn. So, like, as long as you've met that requirement, you can still do that. So
yeah, we in Yu-Gi-Oh would call that a lingering effect, yeah.
What makes me think that still only the water monsters would come back from you is that no one would play this if you banished all monsters and then only some of yours came back and all of your opponents would come back. I think this effect sounds too bad if only your like Penguin Soldier in just this example comes back versus your opponent's board comes back in its entirety. So I'm going to say that only water monsters come back.
I have a question now too. Sorry, lots of questions on this one. Coral says you can't special summon anything else besides water monsters. It just says you can't special summon them. That's the only thing that it doesn't allow you to do. Whereas, but this one you are special summoning them. Yeah, so yeah, you can't.
Yeah, the Zelantis banishes them all and then special summons everything back to the field.
Yeah, so I got to imagine that if the Coral's effect lingers till the end of turn, even if she were to be banished and then re-enter, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you can't bring your non-water guys back, so only Penguin Soldier comes back? I'm going to lock that in. I don't know, yeah.
What about the opponent's monsters? The Dart Magician, the Cyber Dragon, the Legendary Fisherman. Do they all come back? Do none of them come back? Does only Legendary Fisherman come back? Also, keep in mind, the Zelantis technically banishes itself and brings itself back as well.
Who controls the order that these things are special summoned? Like, do they just, is it that I feel like this is, I'm asking questions that's going to give the answer away, but like.
That is the answer
that's
to the
the
question.
Answer. Do you get to choose the order that you bet the summon the things back in?
Oh, that gives the answer away, because then what you can do is put all of your things in play, and then the last one that you put in play is the coral anemone, so that way you got all your stuff back, and your opponents could only get their water monsters.
Well, no, in this situation, coral anemone's gone. It's not on the board anymore or anything like that. Her effect is applied regardless of if she's on board or not. In this situation, you've used coral anemone. It has left the board. All you control is Zelantis, Penguin Soldier, Celtic Guardian, Blue Eyes, and your opponent controls Dart Magician, Cyber Dragon, Legendary Fisher.
But Coral,
there's no Coral anemone.
Coral doesn't say anything about your opponent not being able to play non-water things. And when you're exiling with the Zelantis, you're bringing it back under its owner's control, right? Cameron, go. What do you got?
No, I got this. World Sea Dragon Zelantis says you special summon them. Your opponent is not special summoning their cards back. So you cannot special summon their non-water monsters back into play.
Even though you're summoning it in their control, you're the one doing it, so you're not allowed to put their non-water ones back in play. Yes, dude, that's it. You're smart. That's good. That's gotta be it, right?
Yeah. I'm impressed, man. That is exactly how that works. That is exactly how that works. That is so fucking crazy, because most people didn't think of this, and there's only this Marine Cess deck is like the deck that gets to utilize this. So Zelantis' design wasn't to do this, to like clear all your opponent's non-waters and not bring them back. Zelantis' design was to let you turn back on once per turn effects to use them again. But people in this Marine Cess deck found, well, if my cards lock me into waters, I'm the one summoning everything back, so I don't bring back their shit, so you can clear their entire board. And if they're not playing a water deck, they lose everything. So yes, you are absolutely correct. In this situation, the only cards that come back are your Zelantis, your Penguin Soldier, and their Legendary Fisherman come back to the field. Dude, Cam fucking
that was great,
cooked
dude.
on this
dude,
one.
That's because in Magic, that nothing like that exists. Like if nothing like that exists in Magic, where you cast somebody else's thing and it goes in play under their control. If you were to cast somebody else's spell somehow, you would gain control of it. It would. So like that's interesting. Yeah, dude, that was good.
You guys are absolutely fucking crushing it. You guys got 2 wrong and then got 5 straight correct. This is insane.
I think we're getting better.
This is absolutely
I think we're getting better at asking questions.
You guys are ready to play Yu-Gi-Oh, man. You guys are ready.
Sign me up.
Dylan, this one's for you. You asked me about the infinite loop question, so let me give you the infinite loop question. In this situation, I control a Yu-Gi-Oh card by the name of Pole Position. So it's a trap card, old as fuck trap card, and this card is like the granddaddy of all infinite loops. I control a Pole Position. I control the field spell Luminous Spark, which says that all light monsters gain 500 attack. And I also control a card called Gemini Elf, not a light monster. And then my opponent wants to summon X-Head Cannon, which is a light monster with 1800 attack. So here's where the infinite loop portion comes in. Pole Position says the face-up monster with the highest attack on the field is unaffected by the effects of spell cards, meaning that whichever monster is on the field that has the most attack would be unaffected by Luminous Spark. I control Gemini Elf with 1900 attack, and I have Luminous Spark up. If my opponent would normal summon the X-Head Cannon, the X-Head Cannon is not the monster with the highest attack, so it gained 500 attack via Luminous Spark's continuous effect. But now, it has the most attack. Therefore, it's no longer affected by Luminous Spark. It goes back down to 1800. But then, it's no longer the monster with the most attack, so it will gain 500, go back up to 24. But now it's the monster with the most attack, so it's unaffected by Luminous Spark. So it goes back down to 1800 in an infinite loop.
But not actually achieving anything.
I want to ask you, just straight up, what the fuck happens here? How do we solve it? Can he even normal summon the X-Head Cannon in the first place? Talk to me. What's your thoughts? Infinite loop question.
In Magic, something like this, you would force the game into a draw. Because what this to me does was it forces the game to keep on going forever and ever without there being a way for you to stop the loop. So like normally in Magic, there are things that you can do that will loop, but there's like you are doing it, so you can stop it whenever you want to stop it. But there are certain loops that technically don't have a way of stopping. They just continue going forever, and unless you figure out how to like break the loop, it will go forever, and it forces the game into a draw. There's a notorious combo that's not very good with Animate Dead and Ward Gorger Dragon that does something like this, where all it does is it basically just flickers itself in and out over and over again, and if you have a payoff that says like whenever something enters deal damage, then you can shoot the table, but if there's no payoff, it just goes in and out forever without being able to stop. So in Magic,
how do they say shoot the table? Because I assume what that means is you're killing all 3 other players in your commander game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're pinging them off one at a time technically, and they agree that that's what's happening. But I think in Yu-Gi-Oh that you're not allowed to do a loop. I think I've been told that there is some sort of rule that says if you were to like if something were to like loop one, it only loops the one time and then it stops. So, but I don't know if that the result of that means like, does it force I don't know if the result means like you're not allowed to do it as if like if you try, it forces the game into a draw, or it just won't happen and the thing would just get like one buff to 500 higher and then it wouldn't be, or maybe it would buff up and then buff back down and then it wouldn't be able to finish the loop. So just nothing would happen. I'm going to say without talking to
the
Cam
mental
first,
gymnastics here are crazy.
I'm going to say that's what happens. I think basically nothing happens. It buffs once up, it buffs once down, and I think there's a secret rule in Yu-Gi-Oh that says you can't do loops and then it stops going and that's what happens.
I think it's the same because I have heard that same secret rule before where so if it does create triggers like that, I think that would be, it would be that. It would be...
Well, so a big thing that I'll clarify right now, none of these are effects that are triggering. They're all continuous effects. So once the X-Head Cannon is in play, these are just effects that happen.
I feel like in Magic, this would be more like a layers situation where it has to see like when something entered, and that depends on like how it's affected and if it's going to be affected by something.
In Magic also, the same thing can only be replaced one time. Like it can't... Like, I know that, like, with a card like Notion Thief that says whenever your opponent draws a card, you draw that card instead. You can't, like, replace... If there are 2 Notion Thieves, you can't, like, replace the same thing more than once or something? Is that anything?
So the person whose action it is gets to choose which replacement effect is applied to that specific instance, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same as Dylan. But I think my reasoning is just a little bit different because of layers instead. But I think it is still just, it gets the buff, loses the buff, gets the buff, and then whatever the magic number is, if you're allowed to do it 3 or 5 times, or if it's an even number, whatever it lands on then for the last one is what it ends up being, buff or no buff. Is that vague enough to still give me the point?
No, I got, well, I mean, so you're extremely wrong, but I expected as much. So, in Yu-Gi-Oh, we have 2 kinds of loops. We have controlled loops, controlled infinite loops, and non-controlled infinite loops. A controlled infinite loop is what you were describing, is a thing that you are manually doing that you can just technically do infinitely. So, in Yu-Gi-Oh, the way a manual controlled loop is handled, notoriously there's one deck called Six Samurai, which is really old, and what it does is that they have these cards that say when you summon a Six Samurai guy, you place a counter, like a Bushido counter is what they call them. You place a Bushido counter on all of these different cards or whatever. And Six Samurai notoriously have an infinite loop combo that they can do, that every time they do one instance of the loop, they have one additional counter on each of their cards. So every time they do it, they're just accruing counters effectively endlessly. The way a controlled loop is handled in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is you demonstrate once or twice that you can do this infinitely, and then you say, I do this 12 billion times. And then you proceed from the point after those 12 billion. You just assume it has been done 12 billion times. Proceed from there. So now you have 12 billion counters on all your cards, whatever, and you go from there. However, with the uncontrolled loop, something like this, that it's like, if I place X-Head Cannon on board, Now it's a thing that I can't physically choose to stop doing. It's two continuous effects that are going back and forth. Previously, it would have worked like you were saying before, where you're not allowed to create an uncontrolled infinite loop. You would not be allowed to summon the X-Head cannon. One of the most viewed videos on my channel is a judge call that I took, I want to say something like 6 years ago at this point, where a guy built a deck that created an instance where he had pole position and like 5 or 6 other cards that interacted with each other that made it so if the opponent placed a card on the field, it would create an infinite loop with his pole position. So by the rules, your opponent was not allowed to place a card on the field. They could not play a single card.
That's funny that it applies to your opponent.
After that video came up... No, go ahead. What's up?
It's funny that it applies to your opponent, that even though you set it up, your opponent's still not allowed to tip it off, even though...
Because your opponent's play is the one creating the infinite loop. You haven't made a loop. You made a legal board, but the moment you play a card, you're making my loop
That's
happen,
funny. That's funny. Okay, yeah.
That's so funny.
Shortly after that video went up, Konami changed the policy for how uncontrolled infinite loops function and ultimately decided that if an infinite uncontrolled loop is created, that you are to call a judge will come over to your table, determine which card is most at fault for creating the infinite loop, and once they determine that one, they send that card to the grave and the game continues.
What? That's crazy.
They just say, kill this card. Continue playing.
That's funny.
Insane.
So it's just like the judge is just like, I will be God here. I will poke the thing, get it out of the way, and then that's it.
Effectively, yes. Yes, the judge will literally go, this one card here is the one creating the loop. We are going to shoot it.
That's so funny. Interesting.
I am amazed that is the
Yeah, that is kind of funny.
It's insane. It is kind of crazy.
But okay, that's good to know that in Yu-Gi-Oh! You are allowed to complete manual loops, and you can agree that I can do this billions of times. Yeah. We all agree, and keep going. Because Magic is the same way. Specifically how we play with CDH, like Commander, all of the games end like that. Every single game ends in that type of situation. I have this loop. Can I draw my whole deck?
I heard that you guys in CDH have a ton of like infinite loops.
Everything is an infinite loop. Everything is like, basically get to the point where...
Otherwise, the game's not going to end. We're going to be playing for fucking ever.
Dude, I got to learn CDH one of these days, man. I've had so many friends tell me that I should try it.
It is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Of Magic the Gathering. That is for sure.
So I said that I had 9 questions, but you brought up the if versus when. I'm going to ask you an if versus when question, Yu-Gi-Oh! Style. So...
Ooh, okay.
Off the cuff, off the record, I hadn't written this one down, but I'm going to give you the classic Yu-Gi-Oh! I present to you the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card, Dupe Frog. So Dupe Frog, the only text on Dupe Frog that matters is when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a frog monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except Dupe Frog.
I'm so sorry. The first text is this card's name becomes Des Frog. That's the first thing that this card does, is that it changes its own name. I don't know why that's so funny.
Never been relevant ever. And then the other card is Soul Taker. Soul Taker card says target a face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy that target, then your opponent gains 1,000 life points. In this situation, if you guys control Dupe Frog and I Soul Taker target your Dupe Frog, what happens?
Okay, so when it's on the field, your opponent, it looks like to me your opponents can only attack it. They can't attack other stuff. And then when it's sent to the graveyard, you get a frog from your deck or your graveyard to hand. That's potentially powerful. And then Soul Taker says, target face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy the target, then your opponent gains 1,000 life. Okay, so what's the question?
The question is what happens?
Yep. Well, like if I have a frog and my opponent uses Soul Taker on my frog,
you have Dupe Frog. You have Dupe Frog. I Soul Taker your Dupe Frog. What happens?
Is the question like, are you still?
The question is what happens
when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard. What happens?
What happens
all right,
after
Cam,
this?
do you know or should I ramble?
All right. So in Magic, what would happen? Because when is an instance of a trigger, when Soul Taker destroys Dupe Frog, it would send it to the graveyard, and that would put a trigger on the stack that would allow you to go and tutor up another frog except Dupe Frog at that point. That's how it would work in Magic. However,
that's the important word, however.
I remember you saying that Yu-Gi-Oh! Players hate the word when. So part of me wants to say that you're not going to get a frog because of the way that when works.
Why wouldn't you get the frog? Because...
Is
this connected to the first line of text that says it's you only get the frog if it dies in like combat or something? Is that maybe what it is?
No, you get the frog regardless of how it hits.
As long as it hits the graveyard, yeah. So then if Soul Taker hits it, you get a trigger, you go get the frog in your hand, and then you gain, or I guess you'd probably gain the 1,000 life first, and then you'd go get a frog?
I think that this is going to sound really fucking out there, but hear me out. I think that because Soul Taker says, then you gain 1,000 life points, there is no instance for when to sneak in. So Soul Taker effectively counters what happens because then beats when. Then beats when is what
you think that then replaces the when because that's stupid. If that's how it works, that I would fucking hate when too, because then is so much better than when.
Then beats when. Then beats when. If then beats when is not a saying that Yu-Gi-Oh players say, then I would like to coin that and give you the right to put that on a shirt. Dude, because that's a great shirt.
Then beats when is not something that Yu-Gi-Oh players say, but it's something they damn well should, because that is exactly how that works.
You're kidding me. How did you know that?
Fuck? Then beats when.
Then beats when.
You heard it here first. Then beats when.
That's so funny.
So to explain, the reason why Yu-Gi-Oh players hate the word when is because this is what we refer to as missing the timing. A card that says, when something happens, do this, you can only do it if the thing that happened was the last thing to happen. So because Soul Taker says, kill it, then they gain 1,000. The last thing to happen wasn't the dupe frog hitting the grave. It was your opponent gaining 1,000 life. So it's no longer when this card is sent to the graveyard. It is now when your opponent has gained 1,000 life points.
So
meaning that dupe frog misses the timing. If dupe frog said, if this card is sent to the graveyard, add a frog from deck to hand, it would add, even under the Soul Taker situation here, because it just cares, did my trigger thing happen? Whereas when cares, did my trigger thing just happen?
So now that the Soul Taker, it seems like the 1,000 life that you give to your opponent is like a negative on the caster's side, because like you're giving them something for killing their thing, but realistically it feels like it's only a positive because it stops all of the like what we call like their dice triggers from happening.
Well, so Yu-Gi-Oh cards in general are no longer printed with the word when on it. This is typically the kind of thing you see on an older Yu-Gi-Oh card. There's a couple of random more recent ones that do, but more often than not, old Yu-Gi-Oh cards are the ones that say when, newer cards all say if.
I understand why they're moving away from when.
Well, so a big thing for Yu-Gi-Oh is that we like to talk about this thing called PSCT, problem solving card text. And in PSCT, there are 5 conjunctions that exist that basically tell you how you connect effects that have multiple effects in them, like Soul Taker. So let's say, for example, Soul Taker says, destroy that target, then gain 1,000, then beats when, as we've coined now. It is now an official term, then beats when. If it, instead of saying then, it would say also. Destroy that target, also your opponent gains 1,000, because it's also their simultaneous dupe frog would trigger.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Then is a sequential, they're called the conjunctions. It's a sequential conjunction, whereas also is a simultaneous conjunction. Now, the one that makes no fucking sense, and if you do, if Soul Taker says, destroy that target, and if you do, your opponent gains 1,000, is considered simultaneous, despite the fact that that doesn't make any sense in English. Doesn't make any sense.
Okay. It's so funny though, because in Magic it is very similar to like the wording makes the text completely different, where the punctuation is makes the text completely different. So it's the same shit in Magic. It's just what means what is a little bit different. Because in Magic, if something like triggers, it's on the stack. It's kind of gonna happen unless another thing says like counter that trigger, but you can't like replace a trigger with a different trigger. You know what I mean? That doesn't really exist in Magic. That's so interesting.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you would in Magic you would gain 1,000 life points, and then you would still always resolve the frog trigger.
Yeah. Whereas specifically the when word on dupe frog, people don't like that when word.
Yeah, no, I get it.
That when word is not
I get it. Yeah, I get it now.
All right, well, bro, you guys have fucking crushed it. You missed 3 questions only. I got a bullshit question for you guys. Completely bullshit question to end it off. I decided, fuck it. I'll throw them a question that even the average Yu-Gi-Oh player would get wrong. So don't feel bad if you get this one wrong. I control Amazoness Swordswoman. And my Amazoness Swordswoman is equipped with double-edged sword. I don't know if you guys have like equipment cards or whatever in Magic. Are they called artifacts? Is that what you call them or something like that?
It's a subtype of artifacts. They're artifact equipment.
Yeah. So it's a card. Double-edged sword is a card that you equip to the Amazoness Swordswoman. So now its effect is applying to the Amazoness Swordswoman, and it attacks your opponent's Quintet Magician. You do not need to read the text on Quintet Magician. You only have to look at its stats.
It's huge. Why is it so big?
So it attacks into the opponent's Quintet Magician while your opponent controls a face-up Magician's Defense. I need you to tell me who is taking damage and how much damage they are taking. I'll just explain the way damage works in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. If two attack position monsters battle against each other, the one with the lowest attack is destroyed in that battle, and the difference between their attack stats is inflicted as damage on the person who has the lowest attack monster. So if my 500 attack guy battles your 1500 attack guy, I'll take 1000 damage.
Okay, so what will happen here is my opponent's 4500 Quintet Magician would normally trample over my Amazoness Swordswoman for nearly 3000 damage.
Well, you also got to read Double-Edged Sword. Double-Edged Sword is buffing the Amazoness Swordswoman by 2000.
Right. So she's bigger, and all the trample damage is going to go to my opponent instead. But also both players take any battle damage from attacks involving the equipped monster. So there's two instances, essentially, of Amazoness Swordswoman's effect that happen from the card itself and Double-Edged Sword.
I'm gonna read over the effects specifically because I can guarantee you the YouTube viewers also won't know what these cards do. So Amazoness Swordswoman says that your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving this card. Double-Edged Sword is buffing the Amazoness Swordswoman, so it's on 3500 attack, but Double-Edged Sword also says both players take damage from battles involving the equipped monster. So in this situation, the Amazoness Swordswoman is attacking your opponent's Quintet Magician. There's a differential of 1000 attack here because Swordswoman's on 35, Quintet's on 45. Double-Edged Sword says you're both taking the damage. Amazoness Swordswoman says, well, my opponent's taking the damage that I'm taking. And then Magician's Defense says that while you control a spellcaster, which Quintet Magician is, any battle damage you take is halved. So in this situation, who is taking how much damage?
The Quintet Magician controller has the Magician's Defense, right? And we have the other two cards. So there's 1000 damage. So initially we should take 1000 damage because we are at 35 and they're at 45. But they're gonna take all of that damage, so they take 2000. But that 2000 is halved, so they just take 1000 and we take none. Face value, that's what it looks like. But Cam is snickering as if he has a different idea.
Bro's like, I'm locked in.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that initial 1000. Yeah, there's the initial 1000. That's a difference. That's supposed to go to us, but it goes to our opponent. But that's halved to 500. No, wait. No, it's... But all the damage is going to happen at the same time, though, right?
Yeah, all the damage would be applied all at the same time.
So the first amount of damage that they take is halved as well. So we take 1000 and they take 1000, except that damage is halved. So they take 500 and we take 1000, except the 1000 that we take goes to them. So they take another 1000, except that 1000 is halved as well. So they take 1000 as well. I think I got to the math a different way, but isn't that what I said the first time? Is they take 1000 damage? I think that was my same end result.
That is what you said the first time.
But I don't know if it's because...
I'll give you just one thing that I'll say. This is the type of shit that if this happened at a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, both players would look at each other, go, I don't know what the fuck this does. Judge, please explain this. They would go, Judge, solve this for us.
And then they throw away the problem card because that gets destroyed. And start the game.
All of these cards get destroyed. Keep going. Every time you call a judge, all the cards in question are destroyed. Now keep going. That's how I would judge Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments.
Keep it going.
Destroy these cards.
Oh, God.
I'm going to lock in, I think that your opponent's taking 1000 damage. Cam, what do you think?
I'm locking in that your opponent is taking 1500 damage.
Why would they take 1,500? What's your logic there?
My logic is they're taking half of 3,000 because they're taking battle damage that gets stomped over from the regular trample from the Quintet Magician going into your Amazoness Swordswoman, and then they're also taking their own double-edged sword damage as well as your double-edged sword damage, which is another 1000 each, which means that there's a total 3,000 damage.
I see what
half
you're doing.
of that is 1,500. That's how I came up with that number.
I see what you're saying. You're saying that the order of operations here is you tally up the total, apply it to whoever is going to be applied, and then after all that, you have whatever the total is going to be here.
Yes.
Well, I'll say that here, Dylan is the one that is closest to the correct answer.
I'll take it.
Because you're correct that they will take 1,000, which already I'm shocked about. I want to ask you a follow-up question here. Do you think they are taking one instance of 1,000 damage, or are they taking 2 instances of 500 damage that is applied separately?
I think it's the 2 instances of 500 damage. I think in the initial thing, they're 45, we're 35. We're supposed to take 1,000, but that would mean that they also take 1,000, but they get half of that. So they take 500, and then the 1,000 that we're supposed to be dealt, we deal to them, but they take half of that again, so they take another 500 to take 1,000. I think it's like that.
You're correct. That's insane. That's crazy, bro.
All right.
So this feels like layers to me.
This is
kind of,
similar to
kind of.
layers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind
It's
of.
something that no Magic player could tell you how it works or what they are, and even judges can be confused by them sometimes, and it's a list of things that you have to apply in order. Yeah, this feels just like layers.
But you just know that it's a thing, yeah.
It feels sometimes like, I think this in Magic sometimes, that like they just wrote it differently because they just like wrote it differently, and then retroactively they have to go, actually wait, no, that's different things. That's different things. Like you just wrote,
This doesn't
you
make
tried
sense.
to write it the same, and you just
I
choose a
agree.
different word.
A lot of it is just put a Band-Aid here, a Band-Aid over there.
That's my tinfoil hat theory.
Oh man,
Dude, so you guys got 3 wrong total.
I think we asked good
You
questions.
got 3 wrong in total. That's insane. I expected you guys to get like a bunch of these wrong. That is absolutely fucking insane. Dude, this was a blast. I really enjoyed this. I hope you guys also had fun with this.
Dude, that was great. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, thank you guys for coming onto the channel and for taking this very silly quiz that was thrown together, and I was like, yeah, let's try to fuck with some Magic the Gathering players and all that stuff. But hey, where can the people find you guys? Because you've been a blast to work with.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for having us. This was great. Tons of fun. You can find us Play to Win MTG on the internet. YouTube mainly is where we are. We have podcasts and gameplay where we play Magic the Gathering 4-player. It's a lot like Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a lot of combo, and it's realistically probably not like Yu-Gi-Oh! But it is very fast, explosive card game. So yeah, thanks for having us. It was a blast.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you guys want to see more of this, if you guys want to see these 2 guys back, or a different Magic creator, or hey, if you have any suggestions for interesting questions I can ask Magic creators in the future, leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Play to Win MTG. They've been an absolute pleasure to work with. Thank you guys for coming on. And I will see all of you in the next video. Have a good one, guys. Peace.